This one's on construction today. 2 weeks from today, we're actually doing one on goods and services. I'm going to walk through just how to use everything, and then we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk for about an hour. If you have questions, I'm going to show you how to do that. But then we're going to do a Q&A at the end, so people can ask as many questions as they want for as long as they want. Okay. Quick introduction to SCORE. We're free and confidential mentoring. We have hundreds of people across Massachusetts that mentor, and with a wide range of experiences, from entrepreneurs to lawyers to accountants to engineers to human resource people to anything you can think of. We probably have somebody that can do what you need to do. We do thousands of mentoring sessions a year. We also do over 100 workshops or webinars in the greater Boston area and across the state every year as well. And we actually have 10,000 volunteers across the country. So if we don't have the knowledge that we need, we always can find somebody at one of our offices across the country. And now that we're all using virtual meetings anyway, it really doesn't matter where you're at. We do mentoring by video, we do by phone or by email. Almost all of my mentoring I do by video, and I think most people are doing that as well. If you have a mentor and you haven't seen them in a while, reach out and do a business tune-up. It's always good. We have people that come for years, even after they have successful businesses. They keep coming to us because they can say anything they want to us, and we don't judge people. We don't judge your ideas. We're here to help. And here are a list of our offices. If you need some help, just click on one of them, and if you're in Boston, they'll find us. If you want to ask a question while we're going through this, use the Q&A to ask a question, and Teresa will be collecting questions. If there is a question that needs to be answered immediately, we'll do that. If not, we're going to save them until the end of the meeting. You're going to get a link to with the recording and the slides at the end of the webinar, so don't worry about that. We're not going to use breakout rooms. There'll be a 2 questions e-survey shortly after the webinar, and so please stay connected. So here you can see, so if you have a question, just click on that Q&A. If you just want to make a comment, just use the chat. A lot of it is, if you want somebody's email address that's speaking, just ask and we'll put it out there for you for everybody to see as well. Okay. I'm going to click off of this for a second and then get on into the other one. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to speak for a while. Carol's also on, and she'll be here to answer questions. Carol actually has a woman-owned business and worked with the federal government, but has a lot of knowledge in this area. Ken Turner from Massport is going to speak first. Then Charles Kelsey from DCAM is going to speak about working with the state. Chuck Borstel and Corellis Rivera from Commodore Builders are going to talk about how you can work with a prime and what they expect and what you can expect from them. And then Dimitri is going to talk about how to use, I keep forgetting, how to use ComBuys, and that'll be at the end. He's going to go through how to work that. If you have questions on some other things, we'll have people here as well. Okay. So the first thing is, the first question we get asked a lot, or we've been told, is once you get your designation, does that mean you're automatically going to get business? And the answer to that is no. You may, but more likely you're not. So what you really need to do is actually make sure that that you have a sound business plan, and then we're going to walk through some other things that you need to have so you can actually be prepared to get business and before you actually start going out and asking for it. But a lot of our clients, we have them run through a business plan, and part of that is just if somebody wants to form a long-term relationship with you, they're going to want to know that you've actually spent a lot of time putting together your business, and that you're going to be around for a long period of time. So whether it's the state or whether you're a sub working with a prime, they're going to want to know that you actually are going to be around to actually service the business you're doing, or that you've done the business so you can do it well. So a business plan would be a good place to start. Not everybody needs to do a full-blown business plan, but you need to do some of the basics. And here are the basics. You need a marketing and sales plan. A lot of our clients actually, want to borrow money or looking for money. You have to have all of these things to do that as well. So a marketing and sales plan. How are you going to get your business? And this is where we spend in a lot of our time with our clients. Is almost all of our clients come in, they have a good product or a good business, and they don't know how to sell their product. So we spend a lot of time on this. Is how to do your marketing, how do you get your name out there, how do you brand yourself, and then once you've done that, how do you actually get sales in the door? So you need a plan on how you're going to do that, so people can see that you're actually going to be around for a while. And it's good for you because that means you're going to be around for a while. Do you have an operational structure? What's your management look like? Is it just you? That's fine if it's just you, but how are you managed? Do you have a chief operating officer? Do you have salespeople? Whatever it is, make sure that that it's well laid out. And so if somebody asks you who's going to be taking care of this function, that you can actually tell them who it is. And these are the basics for setting a foundation. So these are the things that you need to start with for any business, whether you're doing business with the state or not. These are the things that actually make sure you can be much more successful. But people who do these things are about 10 times more successful than the people who do not do these, because it actually helps you not only when you start, but when you go back and look at your planning, once you've been in it for a year, and then you can make changes and it's easier to do. So from a sales and marketing perspective, the one thing you absolutely have to have is a website. And the website, should be well done. It's easy to do websites now. There's a lot of places that you can go, whether it's GoDaddy or I have one of mine on Squarespace. It's easy to do. They have good templates for you to use, and we help people do this all the time. Is how to actually draft your website, make it look good for when people are coming to it. Do you do social media? If you do, it needs to look very professional and it needs to be consistent. So there needs to be a brand involved. You need to make sure. So if the state's looking at your social media or the prime is looking at it, that it looks good and that you are posting. If you're going to start doing social media, you have to post a lot. And you don't want to post and then not post for a year, because then people think you're out of business. A lot of what you're going to be doing here is networking. Is how do I meet the people I need to know? So there's a lot of events. You have to figure out what they are. How do I get to the people I need to get to? Come in. We'll spend a lot of time with you on that. But if you're doing networking, you're going to need an elevator pitch. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but an elevator pitch, I start all my clients with elevator pitches. And the reason why is it makes you be able to explain, down to a minute, how you can actually do your business and how you're a little bit different or better. Okay. So the one thing that you're going to need to do, so if you're calling a prime or you're calling the state and they ask you, so what is it you do? You need to be able to define who your target audience, because you may have a different elevator pitch for different target audiences. It happens all the time. What problem do you solve? It's not about, and I can't stress this enough, it's not about you. It's about, if you're working with the prime, what problem they have are you solving? Or if you're working with the state or other government agencies, what problem do you solve that they have? So it's not about you, it's about them. What is your unique selling proposition? How are you different? How are you better? If you're just like everybody else, they can, whether you have your designation or not, they can find 10 other people to do it. So it has to be, we can always figure out a way that you're different or better. It could be your experience. It could be some skill that you have that your competitors don't have. It could just be some product that you have that your competitors don't have. But you have to figure out what your unique selling proposition is before you actually go out and start your business and selling. and I can't stress this one enough, if you're a sub working for a contractor, is how do you make the contractor better? How do you make their offering better? So if I'm a sub, I'm going to go look at a contractor and say, well, they don't have this service. If actually we partner together, we work together, I give them a service that they don't have, or maybe they have a service and maybe I make that better. So when they're trying to compete for business, you're making their offering better. And that's the way you need to approach it when you're talking to a contractor. I did a lot of things like this when I did my own business, is I worked with other people that made introductions for me. I had to make sure that I made their offering better. And when I first started, it was all about me. And then when you realize it's not about me, it's about them. And once you realize that, it makes your sales life a little easier. And give a good example. When you're starting a business, it's hard to have a good example. But if you do have good examples of clients you've worked on, interesting things you've done, that really sells it more than anything. Is it that you've actually already implemented what you're talking about, and you've done it well. And obviously, hopefully it's a reference and somebody can speak to them. But these things, you need to have this all ready to go before you start going out to contractors or the state or networking or doing whatever you need to do. You need to have this done. And we do a lot of elevator pitch workshops. So if you need help with that, come see one of us or come to one of our webinars and we'll help you through that. The bold again, will I automatically get business? No, but there's definitely ways for you to be way ahead of your competition if you're willing to do the work. You register in combines. We're actually hopefully going to have somebody on here at the end that's going to walk you through how to use combines. Do your research. Look at the Mass Central Register. Do some outreach. Do some networking. There are databases that are available. There's Dodge Data, BidNet Direct, and then there's the Community Development Corporation publications you can look at. If you have questions on that, we'll have people that can answer that at the end. Find state agencies who want to buy or sell. Do your research. And once you've figured out where all this is, it'll be easier to do it. And then find large companies who do business there. So if you want to do business with the state, find a large contractor, find somebody who's already doing business, and they probably need your help as well. They probably need to work with either minority, women-owned, or veteran-owned businesses. And as long as you're really capable of doing the job, they'd be happy to work with you. Become clear on your value. So what is the value you bring? And because somebody's going to ask you that, why do I want to hire you? Why do I want to work with you? So you need to be clear. You need to be able to say it in a clear way, in a confident way. We haven't talked about it, but some of the things is when you are talking to people, just make sure that you are coming off confident, that you are looking them in the eye, that you are that you're dressed appropriately, and all those things. And if you do all that, you have a much better chance of getting the business. But be prepared and make sure before you start asking for the business that you're already ready for the business, because you don't want to waste any of your opportunities when they come back and say, no, we don't think that you're ready. You may never get another chance with them. So be 100% ready before you start going out and doing your sales or doing your networking, and so you can bring in the business. Okay, I'm going to get off, and now Ken Turner is going to talk about working with Massport. Ken, just want to make sure we can hear you. Ken, do you have your mute off?
I don't think Ken's on.
Sadiq? Oh, we lost him.
Yep, I'm here. Just checking 1 second.
I looked at a couple of the chats, just to be clear. Today we are talking about working with construction. So 2 weeks from today, we're going to be talking about goods and services. So if you have questions on that, we'll be answering that in a couple of weeks, okay?
Tim, Ken doesn't have audio control. That's what I've got.
Did he come in as an attendee instead? By chance? Does he believe he's on? Is he here? Is he on, but just not in the panelist section? Because I can promote him. I just don't know what phone number he is. And if you can chat me privately and let me know, I can bring him in to the group.
Okay, yeah, let's try that. I mean, we can change the orders. Let's do that.
Charles, you okay going now?
Yeah, I'm okay to join. I'm okay to chime in right now. That's not a problem.
Well, Charles, why don't you go ahead and then we'll put Ken in after you.
Because like I said, always, Ken is a tough act to follow. So, it's tough going after Ken. So I'd rather go before Ken anyway. So that's top shelf. All right, I'm going to try to switch over and see if I could share my screen now. Let's see. If these icons go away. Okay, now, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right, how's my volume? All right.
Everything's good?
Okay, we're good to go. First of all, I want to say I'd like to extend a warm welcome for everyone joining this morning's session hosted by Scored. Tim Nelson, DCAM thanks you. But first I want to pay homage to my director, Brian McPherson, who oversees the Access and Opportunity Department, as well as Commissioner Gladstone. So for the first, this is today's agenda. We're going to be discussing Office of Access and Opportunity. We're going to talk briefly about DCAM certification, the affirmative marketer program, and the DCAM disparity study. The reason why I put the disparity study because it's basically how our program is operated through a disparity study. You really can't run an effective affirmative marketer program without a disparity study. So I'm going to touch base on that a little bit. So the next slide we're going to discuss is DCAM certification. What is DCAM contractor certification? Well, DCAM certification, if you want to do business with the state, we like to say that DCAM certification is almost like the gold standard of for getting that medal of honor to do work. What is our contracts are governed by a lot of chapter MGL laws 149, 149A. And if you want to do work as a general contractor, prime contractor, or a file sub bid contractor, you have to be DCAM certified. And that's a vetting process in which our DCAM certification unit, what they will do is they will look at your financials, they will look at your past practices, they will look at your history of construction, and they will put together some type of evaluation. I'm not sure what the time frame is. I think it used to be 90 days, but I think they cut it down to 30 days, 45 days. Don't quote me on that one, but I know since we've automated the system, we've cut the time frame way down to become DCAM certified. And this certification, once again, it gives you the ability to be a general contractor or a file sub bid contractor. And as we're talking about DCAM certification, there's two categories. We call a prime certification, as I mentioned before. We have a small prime category. And as you can see, it's subject to these laws, 149, 44J, 149, I'm not going to quote you. But if you're doing any construction work, reconstruction, demolition, maintenance, repair, vertical buildings, you have to be DCAM certified. And if it's over 150, you can do a prime. If it's under that, you can of course, apply for small certification. Next slide, I'm going to talk about the file sub bid categories. These are the file sub bid categories in which if you're going to apply for, these are the categories. I'm not going to read them all, but you can see it's roof and flashing, marble, tile, resilient glass, painting, plumbing. HVAC. There's about 17 categories. I believe it might be 18 now. These are the categories in which a small firm or firm can apply for DCAM certification. And as you familiar with the files, if you're not familiar with the file submit categories, I strongly recommend that you read Chapter 149 and Section 44F and see what it involves. Because a lot of our cement risk projects, they have what we call file sub bids, and these are all based on, for the most part, apparent lowest bidder. So, and then what happens is the GC would pick your firm in these particular categories. You know, the GC would pretty much perform the item 1 work, and he would choose a list of these categories in which he would pick his subcontractor. So if you are a sub or MBE, WB, or veteran sub, I strongly recommend you try to certify to get yourself to be a file sub bidder, because down the road, eventually, you will be able to, once you put enough projects underneath your belt, you'll be able to bid as a prime contractor. And that's the ultimate goal. And as Tim mentioned earlier, he mentioned a key thing. He said networking. And networking is very important as far as doing business with the state. As from DCAM, we do not give subcontractors work. That work is, as you know, we have a bidding process in which our contracts are based on low bid. So if you are a prime contractor, that prime contractor is going to put together his team of subs, and those subcontractors are going to be the ones who are going to be getting the work, not DCAM. The GC will give you that work. And how do you do that? You do that by, as Tim mentioned, you want to build relationships. Relationship is the key. As you know, we have an old saying, you know, you got a network, or your net work is going to equal your net worth. So the more you network, the more you'll be able to increase your net worth. So you got to build those relationships. That is the key. And one of the slides I forgot to put down is our slide has to do with Bid Express. One way of doing that is be able to take a look to see what GCs took out bids. And once you find out who is the apparent lowest bidder, then you want to make that phone call, that elevator pitch, so to speak, and then you want to network with that GC. You want to be able to tell him what that you bring to the table. A lot of times they're looking for engineers, they're looking for architects, they're looking for masonry, they're looking for excavation. If you have some special niche that you can do, a lot of times, as I'm going to get down later in the slides, a lot of our projects have what we call MBE and WBE goals, the in-veteran benchmarks. So the contractor is required to have minority and women business participation. So this is where you come in. If you are certified as an MBE, they have to meet specific goals, and I will talk about that later. Okay. All project evaluations. This is something that the certification team does when they're finishing up a project. And these are some of the criteria in which they look at when a project evaluation. Look at workmanship, scheduling, subcontractor on-site relationship management, supervisory personnel, change orders. These are all the things that the certification team, when they finish that project as a prime contractor or a file sub-bid, we ask that you submit these project evaluations. These project evaluations are very key. As we continue to do our housekeeping, we will evaluate how you do on those particular projects. And this will let us know if you're going to be DCAM certified in the near future, or if you have not lived up to some of these points, we may even take your DCAM certification away. So it's very important that you complete these project evaluations. So now I'm going to discuss what we call our affirmative marketing program. DCAM has had an affirmative marketing program in place for almost 30 years right now. I can say it's pretty strong. It provides business opportunities for MBEs and WBEs in the construction as well as design. Now, our construction piece, we have several opportunities in which subs can participate. We have what we call our emergency contracts. We try to get 3 quotes for MBEs and WBEs to work. And then we also have our affirmative marketing program, which I will discuss. We have our JOC program, which is a job order contract. We have our CM at risk, and then we have our 149As and 149s. We also have participation as well as design projects. We have goals in both of these for construction and design. And as mentioned before, in order to participate, we also request that you become SDO certified. That's one way that you can do business with the state is getting your Supply Diversity Office certification, because we cannot count the goals. We cannot count your dollars if you are not SDO certified. Let's see, next slide. So this is our snapshot of what we've done in the last, let's say, 5 years, since 2018. As you can see in the past, our MBW goals were 10.4%. And this is what we've done over the last few years. You can see that it's our goals are 10.4, but you can see it's always increased, or we've always met the goal. So we're really serious about when it comes to having participation in our projects. So this is the construction. You can see what a snapshot is in construction. Last 2018 was 16% combined. And then in design, we also do pretty well. We had a combined goal of 17.9% over the last few years. But you can see how the design goals are for MBW participation. It's pretty high. So we do take an aggressive stance in making sure that MBEs and W firms are participating on DCAM projects. This right here is our 2019, what we did last year. All this information that I'm mentioning now can be found on our DCAM website. So if you have any questions about what we did, who got paid, who did what, that's all there on our DCAM website. And you can see last year we did pretty good too. Year over year, DCAM does a great job in construction as well as design. As you can see last year, $239.6 million were paid to firms. And you can see what the aggregate was. It was 10.4, and we did pretty well on both sides. You can see the construction, and you can see the design. It's just some data. And then this is what we did for the design, what we got paid. 2019, 8.27 for design, and then the aggregate was 37.2 year over year. So we did pretty good. All right, so I'm going to talk briefly about the disparity study. As mentioned before in the beginning, you really can't run a program without having a disparity study. And one thing about our disparity study, it showed that our program was pretty effective. DCAM program is pretty strong, and our performance is pretty strong. And it's something that it's needed, because we found out that when programs do not have a disparity study, they don't do too well. And for example, I'm going to talk about some of the things, some of the experiences at some of the other agencies who did not do a disparity study and some of the challenges that they face. When we look at the background of this disparity study, we can see that the design is we want to put together a level playing field. Statutes call that we implement this affirmative market program. It calls that we have a disparity studies. And one thing that DCAM did back in 2017, we took that opportunity to put together a disparity study, because we found that there were some disparities amongst firms where firms were not getting what they were supposed to get. So we put this together. That also can be found on DCAM's webpage if you want to get a copy or see what the disparity looks like with some of the findings. That's also on DCAM's website. Well, who did this disparity study? Well, our disparity study was conducted by NERA Economic Consulting. They've been in business for over 50 years. They interviewed over 500 professionals in 25 different offices worldwide. You can see who some of the law firms who they utilized. And what did they do? What they did was they gathered information from different particular areas. They interviewed various contractors. They did telephone surveys, and they conducted thousands and thousands and thousands of interviews to collect some of this data that will be able to put together our report. So what's in the study? Well, if you take a look at it, the study's about 600 pages long. It's a thick book, but it's all online. You can see it right there. It's all online. It talks about the executive summary, of course, That's if you don't read anything, if you don't read this disparity study because it's so long, I would strongly recommend you read the executive summary. That's about 16 pages, and you can get everything in a nutshell right in the executive summary. So if you don't read the whole report, read that, and it'll give you the findings on what we did and some of the best practices and anecdotal things that we need to do to make a strong program. Okay, as I mentioned before, what's in the study, it also talked about the city of Boston. If back in 2003, they had to suspend their program because they didn't do a disparity study, but the findings that when they didn't do a study, when they did suspend the program, they noticed that 41% participation in the city of Boston was much lower. So you really need to have something to be able to back it up while you have a program. And then it says 27% was even lower. It was 41% lower for MBEs and 27% lower for WBEs for not having a disparity study. So you can see there is a big difference by having one. Okay, so what's in the study? Oh, I went too fast. Sorry about that. Also do likewise the MBTA. They also had a program, but after it was suspended, it used to be 19% at one time, but then after that, when they suspended their program, their participation dropped down to 5%. So you can really see what the difference is when you do not have a disparity study. So you got to have a disparity study in order to be able to justify your program. So what are some of the changes that DCAM did to strengthen this program? What did we do? So what we did was this. It was recommended that one of the pieces that we have in legislation is, as I mentioned earlier, was the foul sub bid rule. We recommended to the legislation because when you have foul sub bids, the foul sub bids are added to that overall estimate of that contract, and you have to factor that in. So if you increase the threshold from 150 to bring that capital to $1 million, it's going to give more participation for MBEs to participate. Being that threshold so low at 150, it kind of like limits the amount of MBWB firms to participate. But when you raise the ceiling, when you raise the cap, it allows more MBEs participation at the $1 million threshold. So this has been requested and submitted to the legislation, and we're just waiting for them to get back to us. And hopefully we'll get some time soon. But we noticed the state has been focusing a lot of their time and attention on the COVID-19 and other areas of the state. So they really haven't got back to it. But this is where we're at right now, 150. But we want to have the starting point at $1 million. By doing this, this will open up a lot of opportunities for MBEs and WBs to participate on our affirmative marketing program. One of the other recommendations was in the past, we had combined goals of 10.4%. This is an old slide, but this has now expired. It says expire soon. It already expired. So overall, our new program goal will be 13%. And what some of the changes are is that we come up with specific contract goals on a contract by contract basis. So we have a toolkit in which we will take all the NERA data, we'll put it into this data analysis type of spreadsheet, and we'll be able to come up with project-specific goals. But this is just an overall DCAM goal for the year, but we have project-specific goals. That's what ours, and this is what it is for design. Our overall goals are 21.6%, but same thing. Once we take that new data from design, from our database, from the NERA database, we have project-specific goals for the design as well. So they're not 10.4% or 17.9, but each goal has its own project-specific goal. And these are just some of the things that was recommended that we have. Other program changes for conscientious initiatives. Some of the things that we're going to increase the overall spending, which we did. We've separated the MBWB goals, which we did. We've also, we've also increased our supply credit from 10% to 15%. And we're also looking forward to schedule submission of, have our GC submit their contract submissions before they submit their bid. So we're constantly trying to make changes and improvements to strengthen our program. And that is it. And we will hold off on questions. And now we'll turn it back over to Tim.
Okay, Charles, there was one question that maybe you can answer well. It says, can you give us any information on DCAM projects planned for 21-22? Is DCAM cutting back on projected spending in light of current economic uncertainty?
Mr. Lon? Okay, that's a very good question. I was, right now, it looks like things are going full steam ahead until further notice. But right now, I don't see that. But you can always go in on DCAM website and you can look at our upcoming projects. And for the fiscal year 21, we have a capital report that shows all the DCAM projects that are coming out in the future. But right now, I would say no.
Okay.
Full steam ahead.
All right, great. And, Charles will be here when we're finished for questions as well. Okay. So next up is going to be Ken Turner from Massport.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Charles, for being flexible and pinch hitting, because there's always a bit of a challenge to technology. So Tim, thank you for inviting Massport to participate in the event today. We're delighted to be here to talk about the efforts that we put in place to drive diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically as it applies to business diversity, which is the way I like to think of it. So I've asked my staff to put together just a few slides to keep us on track as I kind of walk us through it. So Sadiq, if you would, let's go to the next slide. So for those of you who aren't familiar with our organization, I'd like to start at the very beginning to talk a little bit about who Massport is, because frankly, folks tend to be a little bit confused about who we are. So the authority was formed by the legislature. Can we back up a slide? Thank you. So the authority was formed by the legislature in 1954 to focus on transportation for the good of the Commonwealth. And so why did they do that? It's important to note that we are a public-private quasi-authority versus an agency. And it may sound kind of wonkish and a little bit down in the weeds, but it's actually quite an important distinction. And that distinction is that unlike an agency where you report up to a secretary who reports to the governor, which obviously changes each and every time there's a new executive elected, potentially every 4 years. So there's a lot of turnover in agencies, particularly at the executive level. When you have an authority set up like Massport, where you have a CEO, directors reporting to the CEO, and they all report to a board appointed by the governor, which is what we have, then you have more stability. So from election cycle to election cycle, instead of a high rate of turnover of executives, you'll find that an organization like Massport, of which my understanding is there's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about maybe 60 plus authorities across the Commonwealth. That's why the legislature set them up the way that they are set up. So what makes up Massport? We are all about transportation. Our mission is to make sure that we are providing safety and security to our customers and their goods, whether we're talking about our aviation line of business, our maritime line of business, which are the two that operate primarily in the transportation space. So what do we own? In aviation, we have Logan International Airport here located in East Boston, which most folks are aware of, but they may not be aware that we also operate 2 additional airports. Hanscom General Aviation Field, which is north of the city, about 30 to 35 minutes. And then about an hour to the west of us in Central Mass, we own and operate Worcester Regional Airport, which we took possession of under the Patrick administration when there was a reform and reorganization at Massport that took the turnpike away and gave it to MassDOT, and we picked up Worcester Airport. Another common misconception that I would like to disabuse people of is the fact that we don't own and operate every airport in the Commonwealth. So people think we do, but we don't. Only these 3. The other airports are operated under mass aviation, which is a separate department. On our maritime interests, we operate the Conley Container Terminal in South Boston. So basically all of the products that are shipped by sea that come into New England land at Conley. And so it's quite a busy operation that's in the South Boston neighborhood. Similarly, we also operate the cruise port that is in South Boston as well. And of course, in Charlestown, we have the auto port, which basically takes in every Subaru that is shipped to the New England region, lands at Charlestown. They debark there from a car transport. They're outfitted and then put on trucks and then shipped to New York or New Jersey, Rhode Island, Maine, wherever. But they all come into the auto port at Charlestown, which we own and operate. And then lastly, we have fairly extensive real estate interest in South Boston, East Boston, and Charlestown along the waterfront, which I won't get into the history of that, but basically, that came to be in the 50s and the 40s when we had warehouses there, when it was owned by primarily the Navy and the military, which is now transferred over to the state, which is then transferred over to Massport, which now puts us in a position where we have roughly about $22 billion, frankly, worth of real estate, which we're able to activate in ways through long-term leases, which supplies capital for us to operate our maritime group and do the types of capital improvements and enhancements that we need to finance those projects. If you would, Sadiq, to the next slide. So what does that mean for the citizens of the state? Well, on the aviation side of the business, we're looking at roughly $21 billion of economic impact. When you look at Logan alone, Logan probably is somewhere in the neighborhood of about about $16 billion of economic impact in and of itself. And then the port generates about another $4.5 to $5 billion of economic impact. So when we say that Massport is the economic engine of New England, you can see why we say that. But more importantly, I think, as a person who's responsible for driving equity, access, and inclusion, is it's about jobs. And so when you look at the 110 or so thousand jobs that we create either through direct contact with Massport or indirect operations with our maritime or aviation or real estate interests, you can see that we are quite an important asset to the citizens of the Commonwealth. Next. So what does my office do? Well, I've been at Massport for about 7 years now, and I'm responsible for actually 2 different teams. So the D&I team, the diversity and inclusion team, is all about making sure, to put it simply, or the way I think about it is, we're there to make sure that each and every employee or business partner at Massport or our key stakeholders can come to us each and every day and be their authentic selves. That's the way I think about it, is I want each and every partner, each and every employee to feel that they are not just an employee at Massport or a vendor with Massport, but that they are part of the DNA at Massport, that they feel completely enmeshed and part of the DNA. And the way to do that, of course, is that we enforce our policies around discrimination, sexual harassment, and disparate treatment. The other group that I'm responsible for running is our compliance team. And put simply, that group is responsible for implementing our disadvantaged business enterprise programs, which primarily focuses on the federal side of our spending, and the ACDBE program, which is our concessions program at our airports, which again is a federal program. But we do quite a bit of overview and adherence and compliance policy maintenance with our state spending as well. Next. You can go ahead and skip that one. Go on. Keep going. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about our innovation in the construction space. Sadiq, go back one, actually. I think I may have moved down a little bit too fast. Yeah, let's talk about this. So many of you may be aware through press that we've received over the last 2 years about innovation that we put in place in the diversity, equity, and inclusion sector of business diversity, which has become known as the Massport model, right? And so what we were able to do, which is counter to what Charles talked about just earlier with DCAM, is we were able to drive innovation in the diversity business space, specifically as it applies to construction, design, and whatnot, without a disparity study, actually without a disparity study. And we were able to do that because under the Patrick administration, the MCCA, which is the Convention Center Authority, was looking to expand the Convention Center on Summer Street, what's called the BCEC, with over $1 billion expansion of that facility so that we could host larger conventions here in the Commonwealth. In conjunction with that, we were asked, since we own a substantial amount of land in the South Boston Seaport area, if we would be willing to build what was called a headquarters hotel. So we looked at 2 plots of land, parcels of land that were adjacent to the BCEC on Summer Street, and decided that we would put out an RFP for a headquarters hotel, which is quite a massive hotel. In fact, there are not very many of them in the state. And again, that would be linked to the expansion of the convention center. The long story short was we didn't see the expansion of the convention center even after we put the RFP out. So we had to downscale our offering, and in doing so, we took a step back and said, how can we use this opportunity to drive, in effect, public policy in a direction that would truly drive equity and inclusion for disadvantaged businesses and minority businesses. And what we came up with was we were going to throw out the old model, the old way of thinking around operating with a disparity study to drive design and construction goals, and rather focus on equity. Equity, in other words, ownership. We wanted minority and small businesses and disadvantaged businesses to actually own a part of this project. I'll give you a tidbit of history. When I came to this job 7 years ago, being new to the diversity space, because my background is military officer and private sector corporate executive, I was stunned to find out that there had not been ownership in a major construction project in the city of Boston and surrounding areas in over 60 years. That's half a century. And so we were hell-bent and determined to change that. And so that's how we came up with the Massport model. We threw out the old paradigm of how to think about construction and design, and instead said we're only going to have 4 criteria. And that 4 criteria would be equally weighted at 25 points apiece, therefore signaling to the marketplace that, quite frankly, diversity, equity, and inclusion would be just as important as 1, access to capital, 2, viability of the team, 3, design excellence. In other words, what are you going to build on the parcel that we offer? And then we said you had to have an equity and diversity and inclusion program that was comprehensive from soup to nuts. It had to have equity and ownership, significant design goals, construction goals, and in this case, because it was a hotel, workforce development goals as well. That model, which we launched with this particular project called the Omni Project, which ultimately turned out to be a $500 million plus hotel, which the Omni team won over 5 other competitors, by the way, is now well underway, and the hotel should be operating, COVID notwithstanding, potentially late next year. That model has gone on to be taught now at Harvard Business School and the Kennedy School of Government as a shining example of how the private sector and the public sector can come together, collaborate in a way to truly drive equity, diversity, and inclusion in the overall construction space. Go on to the next one, please. You can skip that one because I've already talked about it. So this just simply captures how the old thinking was. In the old paradigm, you may have set aside 33 points for design, similarly 33 points for experience or viability of the team, and then lastly, access to capital would probably be rated at 33% as well for your 100% total. In the new model, as I mentioned earlier, design, access to capital, viability of the team, and diversity are all equally rated at 25 points apiece, which has never been done before. And so that's what makes it innovative. And that would signal to the marketplace that diversity, equity, and inclusion is just as important to us as an entity as everything else that we're going to evaluate when we put out a construction procurement. Next slide, please. This just talks about kind of the timeline. As I mentioned earlier, we had some naysayers, of course, when we were doing this, who said we would chill the market, it would never work, it would never function. You know, the white developers in town would be scared off because they would never be able to achieve this. And of course, you know, we proved them wrong. We had 6 strong proposals. As I mentioned earlier, we whittled it down to 3 in June of 2016, and we ultimately awarded the procurement to the Omni Group out of Austin, Texas. And now the Omni Hotel that's being built is going to be their flagship hotel here in the city of Boston when it opens next year. Next slide, please. And this just gives you a glimpse of what that project ultimately looks like in terms of this rendering. As you can see, it's 2 towers with over 100 keys. It's 110 square feet of meeting space, 3 ballrooms. It's a $550 million project, so $500 million. And what's more important is we're talking 800 to 1,000 permanent jobs and 2,000 construction jobs. Now let's look at what the outcome of the diversity initiatives were that ultimately won Omni the project over its other 5 competitors. If you look at the development team, and this is where the rubber meets the road, you see the Davis Group partnered with New Boston Hospitality and the Smith Taylor Group, which is a Black-owned development team led by the former Secretary of Transportation for Governor Weld, Richard Taylor, who's a professor now of urban planning and land development for Tufts. And so now, for the first time, as I mentioned earlier, in half a century, we have actually Black ownership as part of this hotel. They carved out $6 million worth of equity as part of the deal. They actually came in at over $7.2 million in their first call and had to actually shut it off because there was more demand than they had capacity for. So therefore proving to all the naysayers that there is money in this space from minority investors. All you have to do is go out and seek them out, which is what we did. On the contractor end, you have John Moriarty and JMA, which is a major player in the construction space. Probably only second to Suffolk and Skanska in the New England area in terms of what John does in business around the country. They partnered in a JV, a joint venture, not a prime subprime relationship, but an actually 30-70 split between the 2 of them in the construction and design of the hotel. And that is major because what that will do for Janey Co. and Greg Janey, which is the Black-owned construction company that John Moriarty and Associates are partnering with, it'll now build and drive capacity for Greg's team and his resume, such that they will be able to go on and take on multi-billion-dollar projects, whereas before they may have only had the capacity to do multi-million-dollar projects. And in fact, John and Greg have gone on to do several other projects together already with no government mandate. Greg has gone on to open an office in DC. So already this is showing that the Massport model is working with regards to building capacity for minority construction companies. This particular slide doesn't point out the relationship around design, but we have similar innovation in the design space. So the prime architect, in this case, is partnering with 3 minority firms. You've got Moody Nolan out of Cincinnati, which actually has now moved here and opened an office in Boston as a result. And Moody Nolan, for those of you who may not be familiar with them, is the largest Black-owned architectural firm in the country. So they moved here now as a result of the Omni project and the Massport model. Partnering with Elkis Manfredi, along with Stolen Lee and Mike Young Kim, who is doing the land check architecture. So that's about the 30 to 32, I think maybe even 35% carve out of the design spend on the project. And again, proving that the Massport model works. On the workforce development side, we've worked shoulder to shoulder and very closely with the Omni team out of Austin. to make sure that at the executive level, mid-management level, and worker bee level, that we are driving goals for hiring, development, and promotion of their workforce. So this is not going to be a bunch of white folks at the executive level and a bunch of East Boston or South Boston brown-skinned folks doing all of the menial jobs once this hotel opens. I can assure you that that plan, which we've not released publicly yet, but I most certainly am, and my team is working with Omni on it, when we do unveil it, folks will see that it will meet the innovative requirements that we put in place for equity, design, and construction. Next slide, please. This is just some of the press that we've received. Shirley Leon's been very kind in focusing on this and saying that this is the high bar and that it should be accepted by the state and the city. And I'm very delighted to say that after 2 years of poking and prodding, we finally got there. As you know, the BPDA of just a couple of weeks ago, literally I think 2 weeks ago, just announced that they, while not adopting the Massport model rigorously per se, they're not going to require that diversity and gender be a forerunner in their procurements moving forward. And I think they actually took 2 or 3 procurements which were already underway and kicked them back to start over, and that was in the Globe. And the governor announced in one of the major projects for the state about a month ago, which is the hospital project in, I think it's in either Roxbury or Dorchester. They're using the Massport model in that procurement. So we're now starting to see it propagate out. I presented to folks at the New York and New Jersey Turnpike Authority, the executive level of the Air Force down at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., as well as folks who've reached out to me from the Canadian government as well to kind of see what we're doing so that they can emulate our innovation in this space. Next slide. So this just gives you a snapshot of where we are, you know, because I'm a firm believer in you get what you measure. So this just shows you that out of the $6.5 million of local equity, we're already at 7 million plus. And we've got well over 90% of the committed capital already called. So in other words, we've met our ownership targets already. On the design end, as you can see, it was 31% minority and female goals. And right now, as we meet monthly with Davis and his team, we're on pace to meet that 31% and probably exceed it. On the construction end, as I mentioned earlier, it's not a prime-subprime relationship, but rather a JV between JMA and Janie-Co. And they're focused on not just building out their capacity, but also focused on the goals around workforce development with female minorities and Boston residents. And we're, you know, on track so far to do pretty well in those areas too. And I think that may be last slide. Am I right? Oh, so this just talks about the fact that this is now taught as a case study at the Kennedy School. Dr. Robert Livingston, who focuses on race and diversity throughout his academic career, was kind enough to do a thorough case study, and I was there, fortunately there, the first night that they taught it. And it was quite interesting to see the executive students react to this. And now it's also being taught as a separate case study at Harvard Business School as well. Next slide. And I think that should be it. Oh, this just talks about how we propagated out beyond Omni. In other words, this is not one shot and done. We applied this innovation to our parcel A2 procurement, of which we received 12 bids. And that's basically for a $375 to $400 million office building that will be on parcel A2 in the Seaport District. We awarded that to Boston Global Investors and John Hines and his team. And they have 2 interesting equity components as a result of their business model, which was not only, excuse me, local investors who are minority, but they also have at the development level, in other words, at the deciding level, the actively, you know, involved in the development team level, 2 minority companies that are part of the development team. Eagle Development, which is local, and Cogsville out of Manhattan and Harlem. And so that was an interesting twist and one of the reasons why they won, quite frankly. And we're considering parcel H right now, which is a 1.1 acre parcel in the Seaport District. And I'm on the selection committee for that, but not able to talk about it in depth because we've not made an award yet. And I believe that should be the last slide. Yeah, there we go. So we'll take questions at the end in deference to Tim in his protocol. But again, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today.
Thanks, Ken. Hey, Ken, one question is, it looks like there's an enormous amount of opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, so if I'm a small business owner with my designation, where should I go look?
Well, the first step is me. So what I tell folks when I'm out and about town, and I'm out quite frequently pre-COVID, I was continually in meetings building out our network because I wanted to make sure, to your point, Tim, that each and every time that we went out with a procurement, that nobody could ever come back to me and say, oh, we can't find any minority businesses, right? Which is the age-old, BS line, right? Which I just simply don't buy. And so what I ask folks to do is to reach out to my office. I will make time for them to come in. We will walk them through exactly how they can compete. We'll try to figure out what category they fall in, whether it's design, constructions, or goods and services. We'll make sure that they're in our database, in our universe. We make sure that they have, to your point, the marketing material so that when they're ready to connect with the primes, that they don't blow that opportunity. So I always make sure that they actually have a deck that they can walk through, and they walk me through that deck so that they can practice with me and my team. And then we connect them to the right folks either at Massport or the right folks in private industry. So we actually do the matchmaking. So my team literally leans in to do everything that we can to help women and minority and veteran-owned businesses connect and do business with Massport.
Okay. I mean, you can find Ken's email address online because that's where I found it. But
yeah, it's very easy. It's just kturner@massport.com. Cannot be any simpler than that. Even I can remember it.
All right. And we'll put it in the chat as well. If not, you can call Charles and ask him.
Absolutely.
Just kidding. Okay, that was great, Ken. Really appreciate it. There was another question. We'll save it to the end. So our next one, we're going to talk about, we've got a prime here to talk and explain to you how they work with subs. And so Chuck Borsel's here and Corellis Rivera both here from Commodore Builders.
Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. Ken, that was excellent. Charles, too, you both did an excellent job. Hopefully we can live up to the expectations. So here's Commodore Builders. We're at a mid-market construction firm. We're in the public market space for sure. We do a lot of private work as well. We do predominantly a lot of work in the Boston area. Where, with what's going on in the industry, as Ken was, alluding to, I don't know if you can see my screen. Sorry. Did I lose my screen?
Yeah, you got to save it. Do a share screen again.
Sorry. I'm just going to go this way with it. All right. So, we're members of AGC, which is Associated General Contractors. It's a 200-member organization that in recent months has really focused in on, dialogues and diversity, and so we participate in that as a member company. The industry, as Ken and Charles alluded to, is really, gearing towards diversity and inclusion. That's an excellent model that Massport has put together. And, DCAM, they have the 13% rate that we try to achieve on any public work that we're going to. We make our best faith effort to get there. But we've also decided as companies that we're going to have our own internal goals. Just like Ken mentioned that, sometimes it doesn't matter whether the government's mandating or not. We want to be better participants in this field. And so we've come up with our own company goals, as many other companies have. We've established our own diversity and inclusion committees that we really strive to make sure that we include subcontractors when we're bidding, that we in our bid packages we're bidding to at least 2 subcontractors in this space. It's not just, we're not just going out to the comfort zone of subcontractors that we always work with. I mean, we've budgeted for it. We understand there's inherent risk in construction. There's inherent risk when you use a subcontractor that you never used before because you don't understand how they work. But we're willing to take that risk like many other companies in the construction space right now. It's not, it's really the time to really get much more diverse in our subcontractor database. We've worked with the Office of Access and Opportunity. We got the database from Charles's team. We've compared it to the database that we have. We're actively pursuing other leads on subcontractors that are already certified that we may not know about. So I think that's what most subcontractors are doing right now. So really getting your certification is the key, because that helps us when we to determine whether you can work with us, because you already do a lot of the things that we ask for through our pre-qualification process. My one bit of advice, like I just said, we're mid-market. We would love to be Moriarty on that project, right? But we we work really hard to get into the public space, and and we meet with many of the decision makers in these agencies, and it's all about experience, right? And it's all about networking, and it's about how can you show us that you're the better GC than the one that's already bid, right? So, we have to prove ourselves every day. So what I say to, subcontractors to us, coming to us, it's persistency. You really got to be persistent with us. And, if you don't get that first job, continue to bid them. We're always looking to expand our network of subcontractors. And we fall into the same category. We're continuously bidding jobs in the public space, and we have to continuously work at it. And the other thing is, there's many goals that are mandated right now by clients as well. We'll be working we want to represent neighborhoods that we work in. That's really important to our committee, a diversity and inclusion committee, is representative of the neighborhood you're in, and getting out into that neighborhood, making sure that folks are understand that there's a construction project going on in your neighborhood that's looking to make your neighborhood better, but we want to include you as part of that process. And how can we do that? Whether it's getting you involved in the work job, on the work site, community meetings, the planning and the designing, and all around that project, we want to be much more involved. And so that's the overview of what we see as a construction manager. And what we see the industry going towards. I've spent 20 years in state government myself. I worked under the Baker administration, the Patrick administration, all the way back down to the Weld administration. I'm dating myself a little bit. And I had various roles where I interacted with DCAM and Massport. I was responsible for licensing and inspections of all state jobs. So I know this is an important mandate for everybody in the government field. And it's an honor to be a part of a private company when I was coming over to Commodore, it was really impressive to me that the CEO was really focused in on this back a year ago when we first started talking about myself coming over. So that was it's been a passion of mine. It was an honor to come to this company and try to help the industry as well. So I'm going to pass it off to Corellis Rivera, who works in our estimating department. That's where the rubber meets the road for GCs. I mean, this is Corellis is going to kind of walk you through the pre-qualification process and what we look for. And it's very similar to what every DCAM does, Massport does, and every other GC in the city will do. So Corellis, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. As Chuck mentioned, my name is Corellis Rivera, and one of my prime responsibilities at Commodore is to evaluate our subcontractor qualifications, not only on a yearly basis to our existing subs, but our new subs. The goal of the qualification process is to help a general contractor identify subs that meet the operational financial requirements. I do understand that for a new company, meeting certain qualifications is hard, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you navigate through the process. Some of the key factors include current capacity, reputation, financial capabilities, expertise in your particular area of work. Most general contractors will require the same pre-qualification data. You will often be requested to complete a questionnaire online. as we continue to progress in technology, GCs are no longer accepting paper. I strongly recommend that if you get a request to complete a qualification, that you do your best to complete it to its entirety. We find that in our industry, when we receive qualifications are not completed to their entirety, and what that will cause is that there will be a delay in a response, there will be a delay in approval. That doesn't mean that you're being rejected. When you don't hear from a general contractor, pick up the phone, give them a call. It could simply be because there's information missing. Some of these portals online will not submit your qualification to a GC until it has been completed. So the GC may not know that you've even gone into the portal to complete the qualification. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone if you have questions. A lot of the questions in the qualification questionnaire may not pertain to you. There may be questions for different subs, different vendors. There's ways to go around it. Just call the general contractor, ask about the questions, find out if this pertains to you. And if they do and you don't have the required information, what can you do? It's very common that for a new company or a company that does not meet certain requirements, that they may not have key documentation available, and that's fine. There's definitely ways around it, and if you make that phone call, you will be able to find out what you can do. I find that when reviewing some of the qualifications, some of the subs, they stop themselves because they feel like they may not meet the qualifications. You never know. There are so many ways around it, and as Chuck mentioned, we're here to help. Commodore has a goal, and it's not only a government goal to meet for certain projects. This is an internal goal, and we want to do whatever it takes to try to help our new certified businesses get work, get experience, so that they can start bidding larger projects. Once you're approved, if you're not seeing invites to bid, pick up the phone, call. There could be different reasons why you're not getting invites to bid. Again, a lot of GCs, they use these computer softwares and portals online to send invites to bid, and they may be using old lists. They may be copying lists from another project. So if you don't see an invite to bid, it doesn't mean you're not going to be considered. It just means that if you give them a call, they'll remember you, they'll add you in there. If you walk by a site and you notice that a general contractor that you qualified with, that you were approved to work with, has not sent you an invite to bid, send them a proposal and follow up and say, hey, I just noticed this project on so-and-so street, and I bid to another general contractor. Here's my proposal for consideration. I can't tell you how many times we've actually gained partners by receiving proposals from subs that have bid our competitors, but we're not invited to bid because we failed to invite you initially. That is an excellent way to get your foot in the door. Send your proposal, show the GC that you know your scope, and that you're able to help them to bid this project. Again, follow up, communicate, phone calls. While it may seem bothersome, it's not. Especially nowadays with what we're going through right now, you may find a delay in response from a GC. You may notice that maybe you're not getting the response that you're looking for. Just call, talk to them, show that you know your scope, show them your value and what you are able to provide to them, because especially now, we need you. So if you follow up and you establish that relationship, you'll be surprised how soon you'll start to get invites to bid from this general contractors. Another way you can build your reputation is very similar to what Ken mentioned. You can partner with other subcontractors. There may be other opportunities for you to establish relationships as a sub-tier. You may not be able to have the capabilities to take on a large project, but more established subcontractors will be able to use you as a sub-tier. For example, we just recently completed a project for DCR where at least 3 of our subs were able to sub-tier some of their work. Our steel subcontractor was able to use, I believe, 15 to 25% of their value by subcontracting their equipment to Tybe, which I believe is an MBE organization. Another one was our drywall subcontractor, Manganaro. They were able to subcontract their taping portion to AFS and so on. So this is, again, a great way to get your foot in the door, get noticed, build your reputation, and eventually start getting work on your own. I hope that that is helpful. And at the end of our webinar, you will feel free to ask any questions, and I will do my best to respond.
Thanks, Corellis and Chuck. One thing I'd want to stress is Corellis said more than once, pick up the phone and call. I think a lot of people think that they're being annoying, but that's part of your business. You need to get up in the morning and make the phone calls, and you're not annoying as long as you actually have something important to say when you're calling, right? So, and you need to keep your name in front of people, and that's how when the opportunity comes, that's how they remember you. But, just be persistent. Okay. Now, Dimitri, we did get a couple of questions on how do I get certified. Could you talk about that a little bit? And then you were going to talk about com bodies.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me over. I work for the Supplier Diversity Office. It's part of the Operational Services Division. And we, as an organization, do two things. We certify minority, women-owned, veteran-owned, service-disabled veteran-owned, disability-owned, LGBT-owned, and Portuguese businesses. And the other half of our office manages the programs, the Small Business Purchasing Program, the Supplier Diversity Program. Those two programs apply to goods and services. We'll talk more about them on the 28th of September. But we also manage the Municipal Construction Affirmative Marketing Program, a sister program to the program that Charles was talking about. And how to get certified. If you're a Massachusetts-based business, you are required to attend a pre-certification workshop. How to get to the pre-certification workshop, how to register. Let me quickly show you how to do it. You should go to mass.gov/SDO for the Supplier Diversity Office. I'm going to share my screen for a second, if that's allowed.
Yes. Yeah.
Hold on one second. I'm having some internet issues here. In any event, mass.gov/SDO, you will see a button there that says apply as a Massachusetts-based business. If you're an out-of-state business, there's a link there to apply as an out-of-state business. And if you're already certified, for example, as a WBE by the Center for Women in Enterprise, as an MBE by the Greater New England Minority Supply Development Council, as an M or WBE by the City of Boston, or by the VA, or by Disability In, or by the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. For folks who are certified by those organizations, there's a much shorter pathway to getting certified by the SDO. We do not want you to fill out a whole lengthy application and provide essentially the same documents that you provided to those organizations to get certified. So these are pathways to get certified faster. Basically at mass.gov/SDO, you choose the button that applies to you and proceed to follow the instructions on that website. If you are unsure which button to press, we also have a or sort of a self-assessment tool that you can use. Finally, my computer has woken up And so this is the SDO website. Under top tasks, take the certification self-assessment. This is where you would go to just figure out what would even apply to you. Would you be considered a small Massachusetts small business? Would you be considered an MB, a WB? And if any of your current certifications apply. So this is the button, apply for diversity certification as a Massachusetts-based business. This is where you would apply from scratch. This is the button for out of state, and this is the button for third-party certification. If you already have some sort of certification, check out the third-party certification button first. If you don't find the name of your organization there, then proceed to get certified, to just follow the instructions in these under these two buttons. Tim?
That's great. Can you talk a little bit about combis?
Great. So for combis, I'm going to talk about 4 key resources that you will find on combis, which is the state's main electronic procurement platform. Let's see. So we will start with vendor training resources. Vendor training resources are located sort of almost at the very top of the page. We have sort of an overview page, job aids that basically show screenshots and instructions for all the typical actions that the vendor might want to accomplish on combis, like registration, responding to a bid, or something like that. Vendor webcast trainings. And also under vendor training overview, you will find vendor vendor webinar training registrations. We manage a lot of webinars. One of the webinars that I would very much recommend is connecting your business to the Commonwealth. Another webinar that I would recommend is related to the Supply Diversity Program. We have sister webinars that deal with the Supply Diversity Program for both prime contractors and diverse companies. Those are related to the goods and services sector, so I will not talk much more about them. So vendor training, you can find the job aids and trainings for the most part related to goods and services. The next thing I want to draw your attention to is the line that says attention vendors, 34 newly posted bids, week starting 9/09/07. Every week, the staff at the combis help desk compiles a list of newly posted bids for that week. This is where you would go if you put something like this on your calendar to check which bids have been posted over the past week. You will see who posted it, and the date, the short description, and the link to the actual bid within combis for you to respond to. So the short description, if you look at it, you will see that these are not just goods and services bids. Some of them are construction bids. These are also not just bids from the state of Massachusetts. A lot of cities and towns post, housing authorities also post bids here. The city of Boston posts, even Massport posts bids on combis. So this is one other place for you to look for bids. The next resource I would like to show is the contract and bid search. If you would like to find out, if you would like to go back more than a week and look at things by keyword, you press on the contract and bid search, select bids. And then once the search form loads, you are actually able to locate bids by bid description. For example, let's say asbestos. So eventually you do get some results. And I want to actually tell you that this bid opening date that you see on the right, that is actually the due date of the bid. So be careful. The bid opening date is when we open the bids. And finally, the last important button, the last important link on this website that I want to share is the register button. If you are not registered on Combise, please do. When you register on Combise, you of course enter all your contact information, but one of the steps in the registration process is subscribing to what's called UNSPSC codes, our commodity codes. This is where you describe your business, you designate what types of services or products you provide, and then buyers can look you up by that code and notify you of the bid opportunities that match those categories. So to sum up, if you're looking for training, this is the area, sort of vendor training area, where you can find it, including all the typical actions that you might want to take inside Combise, including registration, actually. And if you're looking for business opportunities, 3 places to look. Over here, under newly posted bids for the past week. Over here, under contracted bid search, you can search by keyword, by organization, even by the specific buyer that posts bids. And finally, by registering and subscribing for the appropriate UNSPSC or commodity codes that would enable buyers to actually find you and notify you of the bid. So that's, in short, the Combise website. And if you haven't registered, please do.
Thanks, Dimitri. That was great. So we're going to go to the question and answer and walk through a few. But as you can see, there's plenty of opportunity. But the first thing, most importantly, you need to be ready for the opportunity. So one of the things that Dimitri and SCORE are working on is we're going to have a pilot program. We're working with Dimitri's area on making sure that you are ready. So when somebody comes through as a new designee or an old designee, if you need help, or maybe there's an issue when you're talking to Corellis and you need help. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you make sure that you can get ready. And if you need to write a deck, we've written plenty of decks ourselves in our sales lives. So we can help you with all of that. We have some questions. I'm going to go. Teresa, you want to run through them?
Sure. Excuse me. There's one that was put in chat right at the end. Does SDO have reciprocity agreements with other states? It puts Massachusetts businesses at a competitive disadvantage that SDO allows foreign businesses to become certified here when the same isn't true for us in other states like CT.
We do not have reciprocity agreements with other states, meaning that they don't have it with us, we don't have it with them. We only have a reciprocity agreement with the City of Boston, where we recognize City of Boston issued certification sort of at face value. But I would like to discuss it more with you if you're willing to contact me directly. It would be great to talk about it.
Dimitri, can you put your
A little bit of
Yes, I would. I'll share my email address, and anybody who's interested in sort of discussing things online, please email me.
Dimitri, one thing I'd add to that is while we don't necessarily have reciprocity agreements, we do have agreements for certification with organizations outside of the Commonwealth. For example, gay and lesbian businesses are certified through a national organization that the state recognizes. And I think veteran organizations also fall under a separate certification organization outside of OSD, if I recall.
Absolutely. So the question was, I took it to mean other state governments. We don't recognize other state government certifications. folks who are certified in other states do have to get certified with us sort of from scratch. But if you're certified, as Ken said, by the VA, by the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, Disability In, the Center for Women and Enterprise, which is New England WeBank, and the Greater New England Minority Supply Development Council, there is a more direct path to certification. So that's basically the answer.
Okay. Next question.
Well, there's two questions that are kind of similar. I think it was suggested that MBE and WBE were addressed. Two people wanted to know about the resources for veterans, or is it handled the same? Does anyone want to talk about?
The veterans go to the same place as the WB and the MB, is that correct?
So veterans are addressed differently for goods and services and construction. For goods and services, and we will discuss more about it on the 28th, for goods and services, veterans are basically fully included in the program, in the sense that a vendor can meet their supply diversity goals by spending with minority, woman-owned, veteran-owned, disability or LGBT-owned businesses. And it's up to the business to decide what kind of mix of diverse suppliers they would like to use. But you know, what's important to note that this is a program that doesn't kind of set the kind of challenging goals that Charles was talking about, because it's not a program that's based on the disparity study. We set goals for departments buying rather than for the vendors selling the products or services. So for goods and services, primes can meet their essentially self-imposed supplier diversity goals, supply diversity commitments, by using any one of these certification categories. But for construction, I would actually let Charles answer on the inclusion of veterans.
So for construction, the way we look at veteran business, we have what we call benchmarks. We have separate buckets. We have now, because of the disparity study, we do not combine our MBW goals anymore. We have separate goals for each category. We have a separate MBE goal. We have a separate WBE goal, and veteran goals and LGBTQ. That is benchmarked based on Executive Order 565, 3%.
Okay.
Okay, the last question I have, and if anyone has any, please put them into the Q&A tab so we can get your questions answered. How should I market, network as a subcontractor to those contractors on the DCAM list? Do you need to be a DCAM certified as a sub to be selected by these GCs?
No. One thing I forgot to mention in my presentation, and as Ken was talking, it came back up again. A couple of things we do. We have somewhat like Massport. We have like a what we call a meet and greet. We do this once a year. We did it for the design team up at the State House. It was very helpful, and we're planning on doing one for the construction piece. Also, too, we have you also, as a subcontractor, you also have the opportunity to come into our office one-on-one, and you can sit down with us, with my whole team, as well as certification team, and you can talk about particularly your scopes of work, what you can do, what you present, and we will put you in front of our project managers. We will put you in front of anybody in DCAM that you need to talk to so that you can get work. So it's not just the DCAM certification. We have other areas in which we will give you an opportunity where you can present yourself and provide that presentation, that elevator pitch, so to speak, and you'll be able to access more opportunity within DCAM. And this what allows you to get more exposure.
Okay.
Okay, I have another question that's come up from Mr. Turner. Any intention or discussions about incorporating diversity into construction side versus the design side in your Omni example, where words remain strictly low bid?
No, we're not low bid, and you clearly misunderstood my presentation because it is in the construction side. I talked about the JV between Janie and JMA on the Omni deal. On A2, it's between Suffolk. There's a JV, a 3070 JV between Suffolk Construction Company and General Air. On Parcel H, which we're considering right now, I assure you, when we award that in the next few weeks and it becomes public, you're going to see that we continue to build on the model around joint ventures. So nothing against prime subprime relationships, because that obviously works, but that's the old paradigm. And at Massport, I and my team and my peers are less interested in the old paradigm and more interested in ventures, joint ventures, because joint ventures truly build capacity. That's how a small construction company or a medium-sized construction company builds themselves out. You don't do that through a prime subprime relationship. You do that through joint ventures. In other words, in detail, every position that John Moriarty team operates on in the build out of this $500 million project, Greg Janey's team is shadowing them. They're literally man for man, woman for woman. I mean, every position that Janey that JMA has to build out this project, Greg's team is following them along. And so that's how they're able to build out their capacity and be able to say with a straight face on their resume that they did a $500 million construction project. So this is not about a prime subprime relationship. This is about a true joint venture that's verifiable, documented in every way and every step of the way.
Great. Well, I just like to thank everybody for attending, and the speakers really want to thank you because you guys provide a lot of value. As you can see, there are some really important people for you to contact if you need help. And you should absolutely do that. If you need help with your business, contact us, and we're always willing to help. So really, thanks for everybody. And everybody have a great day. Thank you.